What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mountainside Tabletop. Today is pre-order day for Kill Team Hivestorm, and we are extremely excited about a few things in it.
And we're going to talk about Classified.
Yeah.
All right, Victor. This is a new topic, but a classic format.
Yes.
Classic Mountainside Tabletop, completely objective list of things that we like about something.
Yep.
And we had the words up.
Yeah.
Can you put "and we had the words up"
Yeah,
in the words?
definitely.
All right, so what are we talking about? Yeah, the new edition of Kill Team is here for us, and soon for our y'all.
Games Workshop sent us a review copy of Kill Team Hivestorm a couple weeks ago, and we have been combing through it. We're really excited about the new edition, and we wanted to take a chance in this video to talk about all of our favorite changes and how they relate to the last edition. We're going to be doing a kind of fresh how to play for complete noobs very soon, but this one's kind of for the old heads, so you already kind of know what we're talking about when we say things like auto-retain and obscuring, etc. So yeah, these are our kind of top 5-ish favorite changes for the new edition.
All right, the top one-ish thing that we appreciate about 3rd edition Kill Team is all the changes to scoring in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many good changes. So first of all, as we know, in Kill Team 2nd edition, most of your points were scored from the primary mission, and then you got some for your 3 tac ops.
Yep.
Completely different now. So you've got, instead of just the mission and secondary, they're all nicely named, they're nicely packaged as the ops. So we've got the crit op is what was formerly known as the mission.
This was the mission, yeah.
You know, before, in the competitive approved pack, or whatever it was called, there was loot.
I think it might have been called Crit Ops.
Maybe. they had loot, secure, and capture. So now capture's gone, but we have, I think there's 9 different missions now, which is awesome. There's so much more variety, and every single crit op now involves mission actions. Yeah. So you're never going to get the awkward time when, I have my guy that does free mission actions, but we're playing capture, so he sucks now. You're always going to have a chance to do mission actions. That's always going to be useful now. So we have the crit op. Then we also have the tac op, which were previously your tac ops. So now instead of picking 3 tac ops, you pick 1 tac op. And you're not picking from a list of 6 per archetype plus faction tac ops. You're picking from a list of 3 per archetype. Faction tac ops are gone.
Everyone's playing the same tac ops.
And the each archetype is like condensed, so there's less things you gotta know and gotta keep track of about what your opponent might have or what your options are. So I like that. Then there's a third way to score points now, the kill op. And that is, you just get points for killing. It's Kill Team.
The best one. Yeah.
This is so good. I love this change. This has been talked about a ton so far, but I think this is like such a good change for the game. And like, I don't even care about competitively if it's good or bad. For just like the feel of people playing a game called Kill Team, this is so needed. And also before, it was like the primary mission, which is now the crit op, was so heavily weighted, and that was like where you got all your points. Now all 3 ways to score points through the crit op, the tac op, and the kill op are all even. You can score a maximum of 6 points each way, right? So you're not going to think, I do want to kill you, but I really need to focus getting these missions or else I'm just going to lose. Like, you can kind of pick your path, right? Then there's this extra layer on top. There's the primary op. So secretly, at the beginning of the game, you pick which one of these 3 scoring methods you want to be your primary op for the game. And then at the end of the game, you get half of the amount of points you scored that way on top of everything else. So you kind of pick one to be like the one you really want to score, and then it helps you get a little extra few points at the end, which could make a big difference in tight games.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's gonna be so many fun situations where you and your opponent are tied going into the end of turning point 4, and it's gonna come down to like which one you're scoring more bonus points from.
Totally.
I really, really like this primary op mechanic. I think it's it's going to give you some chance for subterfuge, which is always kind of fun in these games. And I think is something that was kind of lacking in the last edition. Like, there was a lot, I mean, there were some things you revealed later, but a lot of it was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then you have to do it, you know, whereas this, it's like, you're always assuming that your opponent is trying to kill you. But now you can think like, if I just feed him some kills, am I actually going to keep him away from scoring this extra thing at the end? Or I think it's just going to give you, it's like an extra layer of strategy and an extra layer of deception that I think is going to be really, really fun in this game.
One other little minor thing I want to mention here is that, you know, there's the strategic phase, and then right after that, there was a target reveal where you deal with all your tac ops. That's gone. All the tac ops now are kind of revealed as the first relevant thing about them happens in the game.
Yeah.
So it just like cuts down time because you don't have to go through the motion of, oh, are you revealing anything? No, are you blah, 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 right? And then also, since there's only one tac op for each player.
It only happens once.
It only happens once, and you're going to like know what that one tac op is.
Yeah.
And there's going to be so many less instances of, oh, I should have revealed this before. Like, oh, when do I reveal this? No, it's like you only have one to think about, and it's very obvious. Like, we played a game, and, you know, we picked Confirm Kill, which was shown on the stream from Nova, showing off the new rules. But you put down a token when you get a kill, and you got to stand near that token. When do you reveal it? First time you get a kill.
Yeah.
Easy, you know?
Snappy.
Makes sense.
The game is much snappier now because of this. I think these scoring changes really lend themselves to just like a quicker game and a more fluid game. Another huge part of that is that there are 3 objectives in all of the missions now.
Yeah.
And so you don't end up in the situation where you have potentially up to like, you know, 20% of your team just sitting on a back objective, like touching the button over and over again.
Yeah.
That was always really frustrating and always felt a bit boring to me and oppressive in like massive model count teams where it's like, I can't even deal with this guy and you're just going to keep scoring these points. I think 3 objectives is a huge win for the game. In the few games that Brad and I have played of the new edition so far, it's felt like all of them, you end up like fighting over central objectives, which I think is so much fun.
I think it's pretty obvious that the kill op is going to make killing more incentivized.
Yeah.
But also, since there's fewer objectives, everyone's going to be kind of like centered around a few points instead of more spread out across the map, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that also will incentivize more killing. And I think this will be a more killy edition for sure.
Hope so, yeah.
All right. Now, all this stuff to do with scoring kind of leads us into our next thing that we like, number 2-ish. So in Turning Point 1, there's been a lot of changes to Turning Point 1. One of which does have to do with scoring. You cannot score at all during Turning Point 1, okay? You can't score the mission. You can't score your tac ops. I guess technically you could score the kill op if you get kills.
Well, yeah, I guess.
So I guess you could score from the kill op, but you can't, like, really do the mission. Turning Point 1. So it's more about getting into position, and this is going to be so nice for a lot of teams and a lot of playstyles, especially slow teams, because I feel like a lot of the previous edition of Kill Team, like if you're playing against a newer player or someone that just like doesn't have the reps in, you would just win the game because the person didn't deploy with getting to all their objectives in Turning Point 1, and then they're instantly like a point behind.
Yeah.
You know? Like how many, even I did that on the channel. We've seen where like, oh, I messed up my deployment on Into the Dark and I can't get through this door in time. So this objective, I just can't get to it on Turning Point 1, and then I start the game behind. Obviously, you know, there is some skill and knowledge involved in pulling that off, but I think this is much better, right?
Another great thing in Turning Point 1 is that in the last edition, you had to pick if you were going to set up each operative with a conceal or an engage order, and then if you selected it in scouting, you could change one of them throughout the turning point. And that always felt like a way to lose the game before you even start playing, and would really kind of force you into a strategy. The way it works now is every operative is set up with a conceal order on both teams, no matter what. But you can switch any of them to engage throughout the turning point. So it forces you to, everyone's going to be safe at the beginning, but you can't just run up and know that like, oh, my opponent is entirely concealed. I can do whatever I want. You always have it in your mind that the battle could start at any moment. And it really adds to some great tension in Turning Point 1. Whereas in the last edition, Turning Point 1 often felt like a bit of a choreographed dance where it's like, okay, we all know that like nothing's going to happen. Whereas now, anything can happen. And I think that is such a boon for the game.
I also really appreciate that it was always basically like, okay, I'm going to put my sniper can shoot from conceal.
Right.
And then I have my one gunner that's like hidden behind something, but I'm going to put him on engage. And then it was like you were like so stuck in being passive.
Yeah.
And if your opponent decided, it was just like, it felt bad. And I get that there was skill there, but it's possible for an element of a game to require skill to be good at while still being clunky.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case with a lot of these things that we've been talking about so far. I think this just makes the game much more playable. And like before, you really had to know, like, this is the meta way to do it.
Yeah.
And like you had to know, oh, these guys all need to be on conceal or else you're throwing the game. Oh, I need to put this guy next to my comms in this specific spot because that's the only way I'm getting to this objective in turn by one. That's gone now. Like, it just is much more natural. And it's less punishing to people that haven't like studied the meta ways to play.
Totally.
You know? And not that there's anything wrong with like being rewarded for playing, you know, a lot and like knowing that. But I just think this doesn't make the game easier and it doesn't make the game like less skillful.
Yeah.
It just puts the skills in other places.
Yeah.
And makes it less punishing for new people and also like more fun. Like I never enjoyed having people stuck on conceal, but I felt like I had to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And now I'm not forced to do that. And if I see an opportunity for a nice shot somewhere, I can do it. And even if I did it correctly, which I didn't always do, but even if I did it the correct way, it didn't mean it was the most fun.
Yeah.
And now I feel like the best way and the most fun way are much closer together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that both of the changes we've talked about so far really reward flexibility and adaptability above studying necessarily. And that's great because I hate that shit.
Look, I think there's room in a game like this for studying.
Room for nerds.
I think there's a place for it in a game like this, but I think before it was like 80% of the game.
Yeah.
And now it's toned back a bit, you know?
Totally.
We'll see how much has been toned back remains to be seen.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I think this is like a step in the right direction for people that like having fun.
Yeah, it's also interesting that like right now, who actually owns this game is like people that work at Warhammer and a handful of people that make videos on the internet, most of whom are competitive tournament players.
We're like in the very small pool of people that have played this edition that aren't competitive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these changes are for us.
Yeah.
You know, truly I do. And hopefully for you too, if you're watching us. Because there are plenty of other competitively focused channels that you could be watching. Maybe you do, maybe you don't also watch them. But you're watching us, and we're not that. So hopefully these rules are for you too. All right, do you want to move on? I don't know. I'm just like talking about nothing. I want to talk about the third-ish thing. All right, this is like a smaller thing, but I think it's going to make a big difference in quality of life. Layouts and new kill zones and just like the maps that we're playing on. So, what do we got here? We got a few things to talk about. First of all, Killzone Volcus has come to my basement and seen play, and there has a lot of things going for it. First of all, it is an open board terrain setup that has fixed layouts. Obviously, you can set it up however you want, but they have given us 6 layouts in the box that you can set up your terrain and know, okay, this is like a sanctioned, balanced way to play this game. Because so much of the last edition, especially in the early days, especially for new players, how you set up your terrain made such a difference on what teams were strong, what teams were weak, just like how the game functioned completely. Like it was a completely different game depending on how you set up your terrain. And now having like, okay, if you want a balanced experience, just look at this and set it up in one of these ways. It's great.
And you don't necessarily need the Volcus terrain to do it. Like, I think even if you're like bringing your own terrain or using like cereal boxes and pop cans, like it gives you a bit of guidance and like this is what a good battlefield looks like. And I think that's so important. I mean, we all remember, maybe not all of us are such in the weeds sickos, but most of us remember the like early in the edition tournaments and like the layouts being published from tournaments that were just like whack, you know, like totally ridiculous.
It's like completely open centers, and it's like, how does a melee team like do anything?
I mean, there were I went to a tournament last year that the TO, and this is not like a bad thing about the TO, but they just like they weren't a Kill Team player. It was just like a game store TO putting on a Kill Team tournament, and the layouts were like no bueno, like they were terrible. And I like that this really addresses that. Now the two options aren't Into the Dark or bad layouts. Now we have good layouts for all three settings. And speaking of Into the Dark, I absolutely love that the Into the Dark layouts not only are excellent and competitive, but they're asymmetrical, it was such a gripe I had with the old Into the Dark layouts for crit ops, was that they were all symmetrical, and so the roll-off for attacker defender meant nothing.
Yeah, just to be clear, in this box comes not only layouts given for the Volcus terrain, but layouts for just like general with no terrains, just for like placement of objectives, but also new layouts for Gallo Dark and Beta Decima.
Yeah.
And the headline here is that there are sanctioned asymmetrical Gallo Dark maps.
Yeah, and they look great.
Yeah.
We haven't had a chance to play them yet because we've just been like slamming Volcus to make sure we know how it works for the video, but they look great. Just doing like a quick flip through, I'm really excited for them.
Speaking of playing on Into the Dark, we recently on our Patreon, and by the way, thank you to the 1 HP Gangsters and Mountain Goats, but we recently did a poll. Obviously, we just put out a battle report at the same time as this video with the new Hivestorm teams, but our next battle report, we want to know what teams people want to see. I think that's looking like it's probably going to be on Gallo Dark.
Oh, really?
Maybe.
Love it.
And people have been voting. Yeah. Currently, I think the Farstalker Kinband and either Hand of the Archon or Wormblade are in the mix.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a tight vote.
Yeah.
Like, only a few votes off, so make your voice heard, I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, huge thanks to the patrons, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, anything to say about more layouts?
Layout's good.
Okay. I think this next thing, number 4, the fourth-ish thing, that we like about the new edition of Kill Team, I think this is my favorite.
Oh, yeah?
I freaking love this. This is the best change. And you know what it is, Victor?
I do, yeah.
The new equipment. All right.
I was wrong.
Okay, so the thing about this is that every time I would play, I'd just like go to someone's house and play some Kill Team, or like roll up to Victor's house and like play some Kill Team. I would be like, okay, we're setting up, and it's like a time to pick your equipment. And I'd be like, I don't have a pen and paper. I'm just gonna pick the easiest thing.
Or like putting a little elastic band on the guy's arm. Hate that.
No, I always just pick the easiest thing to remember, even if it was also the worst possible choice. Because I know I'm going to forget. Or it's like, oh, I have this one on this trooper and this on this trooper. But how am I going to remember? And like, it was just confusing. And trying to do all the math when like there's 50 people in the room talking. And like your friend has to go in 45 minutes and you're like, like, it literally gave me so much anxiety. I don't need any more anxiety in my life. I have enough already. So you pick 4. It's like slot-based equipment now. 4 pieces of equipment. 5 if you pick the extra equipment scouting option. And in addition to that, there is no piece of equipment that is operative specific. So if you pick grenades, if you pick crack grenades, it's like Schrodinger's crack grenade.
Everyone both has and doesn't have it.
Everyone can throw it, but you're limited to a certain amount for the battle, right? In the case of grenades, it's 2. Barricades now are equipment that you can select and set up on the battlefield. There's multiple kinds of barricades, just like tons of stuff. And then every faction, at least the factions that we've seen, the ones that come in Hivestorm, come with 4 pieces of faction-specific equipment. What we've seen so far looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like the best thing is, it's gonna be so much easier to keep track of.
It will.
It's gonna be so much easier to keep track of. This is like there's an element of this that I do find fun, but like 90% of this change is just like it makes it so much more playable, and it's gonna cut down on pre-game time. And like, okay, let's be real. Do you ever remember what equipment your opponent has? We all do when you're playing with someone. We all do
who's got a crack?
This is my kit bashed Balefire Acolyte and blah, 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 explaining who the operatives are. And then your opponent does, show and tell of this is my equipment, this is who it's on. Probably like 1% of Kill Team players actually retain that information.
Yeah, honestly, every time I played a game of Kill Team against someone that wasn't on camera and being anal retentive with a spreadsheet, I would say like, okay, which one of these guys has a grenade? And it's like the rest, I'm just trusting you to handle because I can't.
But now you actually have a shot, especially since there's a good chance that some of this equipment is going to be universal equipment, and I'm assuming everyone will, get a handle on the universal equipment. And then maybe you just have to remember like 1 or 2 pieces of faction equipment. Like anyone can do that. You don't even have to remember who it's on.
And so far, what we've seen of faction equipment with these 2 teams, it's all very logical stuff. Like with the Vespids, one of them gives you a better shot at communion points, which Brad doesn't have to play around that, or, improves my fighting, which is otherwise pretty bad, to okay, like that sort of thing, which all just feels that everyone gets an extra inch on charges, like that sort of thing. It just really is kind of like easy to handle and easy to remember as yourself, the pilot of the team, but also like easy to explain in a sentence, as opposed to like, well, this guy, when he does his second psychic action of the turn, which never happens, if I roll a 1 or a 2, I don't take mortal wounds, but I also still don't get to do this, like whatever.
I'm sure there's like some of that somewhere in the weeds, but overall it seems so much more playable.
Yeah.
And I think that's a theme through all of these changes. This game is so much more playable.
Yeah.
And they've brought the correct way and the most fun way closer together.
Totally.
And I think that's like a super win. Okay, we have one more big thing we want to talk about here, but before we get onto that, we have a bit of a lightning round.
Yes.
What's our lightning round graphic going to be?
It's going to be
Can you
sick,
make me
whatever.
Super Saiyan? All right, I hope you liked that. So here's our lightning round. And since it's a lightning round, we're going to read our list. You can move through friendly operatives. Okay, so this is something that I think has screwed me up before, where like I deployed and I just messed it up and I like body blocked myself and it was really a mess. Or like I moved the guys in the wrong order and then I couldn't do something. This is just going to like less feels bads. Right? I know some people don't like this. I like this.
Yeah.
Moving through friendly operatives. We like. Okay.
Next thing is the just general language cleanup in all the rules. So reading through this core rulebook, first of all, I didn't go cross-eyed and die at any point like I did in the last one. And many of the rules not only tell you how the rule works, but also have like a little sentence at the end like, note, this means that this won't work, or that sort of thing, which really helps clarify it. All of the keywords work better. They all make more sense. There's fewer examples of many different words or acronyms meaning different things like AP and APL from the last edition, engagement range, engage order. Gone. Yeah. It's easy and it's better.
Much better. Okay, next thing, some popular weapon profiles have just been rebalanced to make like more options more competitive. In particular, the 2 that I want to highlight here, Plasma has been nerfed, which I think we can all agree
just bring it down a notch on the Plasma.
And also Hot has been reworked, so it actually matters now. You can't just re-roll your ones away and never care about overcharging. Like, it actually is a meaningful choice.
Yep.
And also, Flamers are better now. I don't think they're going to be your go-to Marine killers anytime soon. But I think they're actually, like, in some situations, especially on Into the Dark or, in the close quarters situations on Volcus, I think against, like, Horde teams.
Yeah, great.
Very competitive now,
I
think, in certain matchups. And, like... Flamers were basically garbage unless you were a novitiate or the one Kroot guy. So now, like, I could definitely see Flamers actually being used, which, is great. More meaningful choices. Love it. Okay, next thing. Why don't you take this?
Yeah, so the next thing has totally been beaten to death online already, but shapes are gone, numbers are in for measuring distances. I was never a shapes hater. I thought that maybe the reason behind shapes was to help those of us who live in the metric system and are less familiar with the imperial system, but whatever, it doesn't matter. What is good about shapes being gone is that it, I think, has freed up the design a bit for base movement stats. I think that's kind of like the biggest thing. And weapon ranges. But it's so nice that now it seems like elves have 7 inches of movement, dwarves have 5 inches of movement. I think that's a better delta than everyone having 6 and just like some stuff having way less.
Yeah, and like pistol range is almost universally gone up to 8 inches.
Yeah.
But things like shotguns are still 6-inch range, so there's like more of a meaningful difference there.
Yeah, it's interestingly both more variation, but also a more accessible and understandable rules language.
Yeah.
So I think across the board, great.
Okay, next thing, this is a small change, but I think a very meaningful thing for player experience. Rolling initiative now.
Yep.
For turning point 2 onward, if you lose initiative, you get an extra CP. So it just like offsets the feels bad.
And you know what? It actually makes a difference. When I first read this rule, I thought, whatever, I'd so much rather have initiative than just like an extra CP that I can burn on a reroll.
No, it makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference, and based on the ploys that we've seen so far, like they're kind of more impactful and easier to implement properly. So I think it's great, and actually it's so good that you might choose to take the extra CP over initiative in some situations.
Yeah, that might actually happen sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, next, Overwatch is gone.
Yep.
Replaced with Counteract. So Counteract is basically like Overwatch, except for a few huge differences. First, when you shoot with a Counteract, you don't get a penalty. You can just shoot like normal. Okay. 2, it doesn't have to be a shoot. It can be any action. The caveat being, if you're doing any kind of movement, it can only be up to 2 inches.
Yep.
But, you could charge. You could counteract and charge someone. You could counteract and fight if you're already engaged.
You do a mission action at the end of the turn to steal a point.
That is huge.
Yeah.
If you're a scout and you only got 10 bodies or 9 bodies, however many they have, and they're, running up, they move and dash onto a point, but you have one counteract at the end, you just tap the point at the end, it's no big deal.
Yeah. It's great.
It's sick. So that's great, especially for elite teams.
And the number one thing for the end of the lightning round is that all of the rules, the core rules, the team rules, it's free. It's going to be in an app. This is so good, and it is so overdue, and is just like a massive thing for the accessibility and the growth of this game. It's great, and we love it, and I can't believe it's taken this long, but better late than never, and it's great.
I'll put lightning round the computer away.
Yeah, lightning round is over.
And now our final thing, our fifth-ish thing that we enjoy about the new edition.
Mm-hmm.
The changes to obscuring, which we all know this was going to happen, and it's good.
It's very, very good. Line of sight and obscuring kind of feels like similar enough in that if you've played Kill Team before, you'll like learn it like this, but also it's very simple and it all just works, and it doesn't require so many charts of if this then that, but if that then this isn't allowed. Like it all just kind of works. And so the like top-down Cole's Notes version of it.
Before you say this, I don't want, we're paraphrasing it. Like, I don't want to misinform anyone. So, go read the rule for yourself.
Of course.
Don't take our word for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead.
So, the Cole's Notes version of it is your cover saves are improved a little bit. Vantage points are a little bit more powerful to balance that out. But then the big thing with obscuring is that you can still shoot targets that are obscured, but when you do, you can't retain any critical successes, and you have to remove a normal success. So it's kind of like an auto fail. And so it's extremely punishing, but it, when you're desperate, it gives you an option, and it's great.
Yeah. Another thing is that there's used to be that thing where it was 1 inch for your enemy or 2 inches for you, and it was inconsistent. Now it's just the same for each person.
It's all baked into control range.
Yeah, control range, you're in cover, or if it's past that, it could be maybe obscured.
Read the rule when it comes out, and you will understand it in the first reading, which is the biggest endorsement we can say about line of sight coming from where we've been for the last 3 years.
Yeah. All right, well, Vic, that was 5 things that we love about this edition, plus the lightning round.
Yep.
We do have one little piece of bonus here.
Yeah.
We are going to take a minute to discuss the classified team system. So if you haven't heard, if you didn't catch the news, you're luckier for it. But basically what they're doing here is, so for the first 4 seasons of every Kill Team's lifespan, it will be classified, meaning it will be valid everywhere, and it will get balance updates everywhere, right? And then after those 4 seasons, they will stop being classified teams, and they will still be exactly the same. They will still get balance updates. They will still be playable everywhere except for classified tournaments, which will be the World Championship, most GW tournaments,
US
I would
Open,
assume.
that sort of thing.
And then beyond those top tournaments, it's up to the tournament organizer.
And so this is going to serve both as us saying we're not too worried about classified. I don't think it's going to impact well over 99% of Kill Team players. You can keep playing with your teams. They're going to keep getting balance updates. There's nothing to worry about. But mostly, this is a call to local game store tournament organizers. If you're Mountainside Tabletop fans, happen to be watching the video, sup, love what you do. But mostly, don't make your local tournaments classified. They don't need to be. There's no reason for them to be. All of the teams will remain balanced, or as balanced as this thing ever is. And you just don't need to have that restriction in place.
You know what? I'll do you one better. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I would say... I don't just tell people never make it, but I'd say listen to your community.
Yeah.
And, you know, if there's lots of people in your area that love Commandos in 2027, then you don't need to be classified.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think there was a lot of doomsaying when this article came out and classified teams were revealed to be a thing. One of the main complaints I saw was people saying, okay, well, after this edition, they won't get balance updates anymore. So that effectively makes it a 6-year lifespan, right? I think that's maybe a misreading of the article, because my reading was they say it will continue to get balance updates for the remainder of the edition. It never says, and then that's it. Yeah. I think they're just, like, they don't know what's happening after that. Who knows?
I really think that unless you had your heart set on winning the World Championship in 2026 with Vetguard, this doesn't need to worry you. And if you are that person and you did have your heart set on that, I'm sorry, and you are going to be upset, but...
you can learn a new team. I believe in you.
Yeah. Like, really, don't worry about it. I have a feeling that it's just because it's impossible to keep 100 kill teams in stock in every store.
I've seen a lot of people actually saying that this is like very negative from Games Workshop. They think it bodes poorly for the future of the game. I actually think the opposite. I think this shows that they're thinking about the future. They want this game to be a long-term thing for them. You know, they could easily just say, oh, well, we'll just cram 100 teams in there by the end of the edition because we're canning it then anyway. Yeah. It doesn't matter. This shows a level of foresight, I think, that is very comforting and says to me, like, they care about the game succeeding for years and years, and they want to set it up for success now, you know?
Nothing is rotating out like Standard and Magic the Gathering, and nothing is being put in Legends. They're getting balance updates. You can play with your teams. You can play with your teams in every setting except for the World Championship. And if your local game store TO says, no, we're doing classified only, just ask some questions. Just ask why. And, like, maybe have your voice heard.
Yeah. All right, well, we've had our voices heard for far too long in this video.
We haven't even mentioned that there's co-op and single-player rules. That's another great thing. But we can't talk about it all. But we're going to do some stuff with that, and it's very cool.
All right, we'll be back soon. Lots of Kill Team coming from this channel. Thanks again to the patrons. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace!